Hello, welcome everyone. This is John Person. We've done a sound check. We've got Dr. Jeff Scott in-house. I wanted to welcome everyone to our introduction to stock picking class. So first and foremost, let's just take a moment to, if you could, give me a great big thank you, Ralph. I see your hello. That means you can hear me. Thank you very much. Please take a moment to read this risk disclosure. It is important. Randy, hello to you as well. A thumbs up if you can see and hear. That's a good thing. I don't want to play the Who's rock and roll song, Tommy, can you hear me? Tommy, can you see me? But hey guys, can you hear and see me? A thumbs up would be awesome. A testing of a 1, 2, 3, and it looks like we've got responses. That's awesome. Well, technology is working. I hope everyone's having, well, a good run in the market here for us. And I'll tell you what, if you enjoyed the email that we sent out, which was a little slightly humorous, hopefully, it is actually a true statement in that email. There was a shortage of condoms. And I'm thinking, boy, 9 months from now, we better reevaluate healthcare. If you're a doctor, you may want to switch practices, I guess, because obstetricians might be off the charts here. And again, it wasn't a joke. It was a serious observation. People weren't just buying toilet paper. They were stocking up on cases of wine. So in our own live trading room, Constellation Brands was a big one. But also, if you notice in that email that we shipped out to you guys as an advance notification, we also put out a trade that came up on the radar screens that we'll share with you today a little bit, called Penske Auto Group. I mean, it sounds pretty stupid, but you know, it had a significant upside move. So I'd like to get into that with you guys and just point out, my name is John Person. I'm a 40-year veteran in the market. Many of you are familiar with my work. I've written several books. I was the co-author editor of the Commodity Trader's Almanac. We put out Candlesticks and Pivot Point Trading Triggers in Mastering the Stock Market, high probability market timing tools. I've created several indicators that are on multiple trading platforms. The PPS indicator found on Thinkorswim, our TradeStation algorithm programs, relative strength tool, PMC, and these are a lot of tools that I've created that I wanted something that showed momentum in price, and B, for stocks, I wanted to see something a little bit more visualized with relative strength. So I think if everyone had access to a prop firm's trading strategy, that would be pretty amazing. How about tools that were modernized that a lot of props firms don't have? How about that? Because I'll tell you right now, it's not that I reinvented the wheel. I modernized and I made some technical tools a lot better. And that's what it is. We modernize technical tools the way we see things in the marketplace. And as far as these technical tools, having a platform that allows us to run scans and integrate other ideas is unbelievable. And that's combining fundamental criteria with some of the most amazing technical signals that I have seen and still continue to trade off of and profit from. I love these, and I know for a fact you guys, if you're not familiar with my work, will just be in awe and will love what you will be working with. So I also found an idea to scan for higher and lower time frame signals, meaning if a high time frame's in an uptrend, wait for the short term to confirm and go back into an uptrend. And that I want to kind of share with you, which was the whole thing about Penske Auto Group, since this email went out over the last couple of days. And I know there's a lot of stocks up because the market's up, but little stupid thing like Penske Auto Group had a very, very, very tiny risk associated with the trade setup at 31 and change. It's at 37 and change. That's a 20% gain in just a couple days. A lot of stocks are up sharply, but stocks that aren't even in earnings are up over 20%. So I think as long as you have your internet and it's connected, I think that being able to select some trades and be in the right stock in the right sectors and have a little bit more confidence in the signals that you're taking is going to make everyone a much better trader. And I think you can beat the pro traders and institutions at their own game. There are some times there are some unfair advantages. We've seen several what I call dump and pumps, where the market just slams down 2 days before some kind of news, and you know somebody's in the know, and that somebody knows about it. So low volume stocks can be sort of manipulated. There was one that we wrote about in this week's newsletter, and I'll share with you that particular name because I like to point these things out, and they're really hard to try to get around. This is Immunomedics, IMMU. If you take a look at that stock, IMMU, you'll see that's a classic definition of a dump before a pump. Now, the reason I bring this to your attention is because no scan, nothing is going to help to avoid that type of situation, especially when you're in very low volume, on average, low volume trades. So one of the things that I like to do is not get into trades that the volumes are sub 1 million shares. And you know, if I do, I better have a really good, strong setup. And I'm going to share with you my setup. And so I wanted to go through and just share with you a couple things about what helps me make trading sound decisions. And then I want to introduce my good friend. And I mean, we became friends over a long time as we were going back and forth, and his passion for trading, Dr. Jeffrey Scott, and who's been a fan of my work for a long time. He's a user of a program called HGSI, and it's taken me a long time. And it's funny because George, the founder and creator of the software, had me look at this in 2015. Now, friends, I'm Irish. I'm a little stubborn. I'm slow to the poke. But boy, when I get on something, it's hard to get off. And if you can relate to that, it's a true thing. And you know what? I'm a very loyal fan. And so what I found about this, it was like, you know, there's so many things going on in my life: trading, advisory service, managing a fund. I just don't. By the way, I was in the midst of writing and coming out with it, updating a second edition of Candlestick and Pivot Point Trading Triggers. That book was written 16 years ago. It's been in the process of over 3 years. A lot of things have gone on from 2018, the market's active movements, 2019, and now today. But the news is that the book had been written, finished. It's in the editing process, and will be back on the store shelves probably at the end of this year, possibly. So the point is that there's a lot of things that are worthy of looking at, and a methodology that I've created has stood the test of time. And that's being able to say, boy, it worked on other platforms, but we took this information and put it on a platform that can combine other factors. And those other factors that are found in HGSI make what we've got an invincible tool. And it's amazing. And I really do know that you guys will love it. What we added to the HGSI person indicator package over here on HGSI is this PMC relative strength indicator. And I'll divulge that in just a minute. I believe for a stock, comparing against the S&P 500, for example, relative strength is everything. And we did this in a sense of a moving average component, which identified a stock's movement in 4 stages: improving, outperforming, starting to weaken, and lagging. And it's color coded. So if you're looking at a stock and it's in a buy signal and the relative strength is starting to improve relative to the overall market or outperforming, this is a solid signal. Then institutions are starting to see that as well. And that's what I mean by leveling the playing field with some of these institutional traders. Again, person's pivot indicator, a very powerful tool on multiple time frames: daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And for the record, the S&Ps are trading up this month, which concludes on Thursday, by the way, the high for the month, a key kind of reversal. But unfortunately, we're getting up near a predicted monthly person's pivot resistance. So rather than looking to buy stocks up on this rally, we today are starting to unload some of the long positions and lighten up as we are near this resistance. Some of you might be Fibonacci experts or Fibonacci users, and you may understand in the S&P 500 that we're close to a 618 retracement. I want you to know that at times Fibonacci interacts very well with the person's pivot indicator to the point where it's too redundant. And my work with the pivots that I've done in over 40 years have shown me that the pivots give me a specific support and resistance, and the person's pivot indicator gives me a targeted condition of the market: bullish, bearish, and neutral. And if the market's bullish, it will project higher highs and higher lows. So the person's pivot indicator is very important to know the location of price to being near resistance, which would signify overbought, or price near support, which would indicate the market's oversold. We also have another indicator called the last conditional change. It's another individual support and resistance tool that shows it on the individual bar charts. My famous high and low close doji triggers. And again, the PBS, we call it the person's buy and sell. Now, I like to be pretty compliant, and I like to be very compliant. And so that's why this is also known as the PPS indicator, person's pivot study. It is a momentum indicator, and it paints a buy and a sell arrow on the charts. And it was something also that can come up in your screens when you run scans. And what's neat is to run fundamental with sector percent change comps. And that's one of the things that I wanted to share with you briefly before I pass the baton over to Jeffrey, and because he's the one responsible for bringing me here. And I just wanted to share with you, when I tell you that we can run scans in the John Person indicator, and we can convert and add any fundamental factor we want, but also finding out what industry group the market is giving, but also find out a little bit more than any other software can do. What are the amount of stocks that are in maybe wood building materials also generated buy signals of my PPS indicator? In fact, if you look at Louisiana Pacific Corp right here, 100% of the stocks in that sector group are all in a buy signal. So that means you're buying a stock that is not the Lone Star Wolf. It's also running with the pack. And I got news for you. Institutions generally don't buy one stock. They buy a lot of them because they buy a sector group. So that to me is a very interesting scenario. So I also wanted to, just as I may be so bold, I wanted to cover quickly, and if you notice here that this stock has a person market catcher, fuchsia means it's improving. Now, when the relative strength is improving, and that's this tool down here, I'm going to expand this chart. When the relative strength's improving and you're getting into a buy signal and you're starting to trend higher and the whole sector group's also in a buy, this is a pretty good solid signal that you could look to join that trend or look to buy that trade. Now, let's look at PAG, which is Penske Auto Group. Once again, the reason I'm picking on Penske Auto Group is if you look and read the email invitation that we sent out, it specifically gave you guys a little taste bud of what we are looking at in the market. That's pretty brazen to say, hey, by the way, you guys want to look at Penske Auto Group. It's at 31.73, and we found this trade in the HGSI scans, and I send this trade out. Not many people are willing to do that, and yet I can stand by that because we had, if you look here, the relative strength, this fuchsia color, it's in an improving stage. And so as the market was rising and it had a shallow pullback, it's still in an improving relative strength. This is on a daily basis. Examine the weekly. The weekly was in a buy, pulled back, and generated a intra-week buy signal. So when the weekly's in a buy, by the way, and the daily's in a buy, as it is, you have a more powerful upside pattern. Now, again, it's only up 20% since we sent this email out. But you know what? And I know a lot of other stocks are up just as well. But this is a stock that's up without earnings. And Facebook, I know they had great earnings, and Tesla had some great earnings. But what makes this a very impressive trade is if we can teach you, which we will, that the last conditional change support, you can look to take a buy and know where to place your stop loss, and then use a little bit of money management to help you succeed in the road of trading and pick out better trades. And that's what's really magical about a software like HGSI, because at a snap of a finger, I can qualify the amount of trades, the type of trades, and also I can look and see whether or not there's strong volume, good participation in the group, and I can say, gee, is it outperforming relative to the market? So if you take a look at something that's lagging, even though it's in a buy signal, like a Dave and Buster's, let's see, no, that was, excuse me, Cracker Barrel, lagging. You know, to be honest with you, I don't think I want to commit some of my hard-earned equity that I have to do the best with my capital as possible. And I have to have a decent rate of return on my capital. And when I look at this particular trade, and let's double check on CBRL, Cracker Barrel, I just given you an example. You know, the market, the relative strength, it's not really doing a whole lot on a daily basis. The weekly analysis is just starting to improve. This week now, it may generate a weekly buy signal, and that's what that's warning us. But I think maybe I could look at that trade next week. But right now, as a momentum trader, I need to know where to put my money to work the best place possible. And that's what these indicators do. Now, Jeffrey, I would like him to take over at this point, because he helped create a lot of these things for himself, taking my ideas like, what the heck is this little red and green bar? So I'd like to invite Jeff to come in.
So thanks, John. You know, John and I, just a quick story. I think I was one of his first, if not the first, purchaser of his lifetime tools packages. And I remember I bought them from his son when he worked in the business. And then I would see John at Traders Expos, and, you know, I was just one of zillions. That was back when there were actually growing numbers of traders. And I would talk to him. One day he told me how great it was to live in South Florida and how wonderful it was not to have state income taxes. Well, that went into my brain. And then maybe a decade later, I moved down to South Florida. And then I was in his trading room, and I went to the website, looked up the address, and realized he was about a football's throw away from where I was. So I walked into the office, and what was a mentor-teacher relationship turned into friendship. But I should have knee pads for how many years I've been begging to get John's signals into HGSI. So let's talk about it. There's my email address if you have any questions, and I'll talk about some specific stocks and how I find them. This is my disclaimer. Everybody has one. This is for education only. I'm a doctor, not a broker. I'm independent. I paid for the tools I use, and trading involves risk, and you alone are solely responsible. Now, I do, as an individual trader, I don't have a brand. I'm able to learn from lots of people, and I put together, and when I do some trading education, I always call it be your own guru. And I like to think that I married what I learned the best from a canceling world, and then John told me how to actually make money with the stocks that I found. I mean, it's as simple as that. If you watch my webinars, I say the same thing, and I can assure you John's probably never watched one of my webinars, but that's okay. This guy here, Ian Woodward, is really, you know, besides John, probably one of my biggest influences. And when I use funny names on my videos and things like that, I can assure you they all came from Ian. So I've married two worlds. I trade a lot, but I actually am one of the leaders of a company that's got 3,500 employees. So I also work a lot. If I got stuck on a desert isle, which is usually a Marriott in some city like San Francisco, I make sure I have TradeStation, Thinkorswim, HGSI, and then the other tools that are listed here. If you want to see what I do on a regular basis, I do record and place on YouTube a series of videos, and just look up my name, which is Jeffrey Scott and Stocks, and you'll find my my videos. As I said in my intro, I am independent. I don't get anything if you buy HGSI or John's indicators, but you know, people ask why I do that. Well, I am a nice guy, but I do it for another reason. As user groups grow, you can get more things added, and HGSI to me is a critical part of my trading. So I've been very supportive of it. If you don't know HGSI, up here it says free 30-day trial. George, who's the proprietor, is a little crazy in my mind. He doesn't even ask for a credit card. And under the investing strategies, you'll see lots of videos of how to use it. To those that are coming from the non-HGSI community, there is a learning curve. And if you do download, remember my email, hgsidoc@gmail.com, or just go through the support of HGSI. I've got a series of videos that I put together of how to use HGSI. I hate to give away John's secrets without permission, so I'm not going to talk about the secret. But I have been trading a combination, of the things that I do, but historically, but over and over again, I'm finding that this PMC and the person buy sell indicator, and I'm going to show you an HGSI, have become my go-to thing, my go-to plan. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I want to find a flat area, as you can see where my arrowhead is. Doesn't even matter what the stock name is or what it's trading at today. This was right before the market collapsed. I want to find the PMC where it's less negative, or from negative turning to positive. During that period of time, it went from negative to positive. And then I'm looking where this arrow is, and this is how we implemented person's buy signal into HGSI. It can either be an arrow, or I like the ribbon here. So the first time it turned green was when you got the signal. And then the way I set up HGSI, and much more detail than we'll go today, but the other, well, I'm not sure I'd say the other, but maybe the most powerful signal is weekly high close doji. It tells me right here that I've got one of those as well. So I could show you hundreds of stocks that I've bought over the last several months where the stock came down to support. The 50-day moving average is the average in blue. The person market catcher became less negative, and I fired a buy signal. Okay. Now, if you're wondering what all the other stuff is on the screen, watch my videos, but I have a number of other momentum indicators that I use for scanning purposes, and I'll show you that at some point today. Republic Services, stock coming down, PMC trending up, new buy signal comes in, sitting on the 50-day moving average. That is my story. That is what I'm looking for every day, every time I look at a chart. Pull back to support and give me a momentum. And then show me a divergence, or positive divergence, or convergence, bullish convergence, where the stock's going sideways or pulling back and the relative strength is improving. Alteryx, this was a great play before the market rolled over. Same story, stock down. I get excited off the 50 here. New person indicator fired, PMC. And I could go on and on. Shopify, this was a great trade last year. It pulled back to the 200-day moving average. It fired a person buy signal, and look at my person market catcher. Why is it getting less negative? Why is my relative strength improving while the stock's selling off? SE, this is a stock that's still performing. Deep pullback, fires a buy signal. Well, how do I filter that versus other stocks that have pulled back? Well, this one didn't really become less negative, but with the stock becoming very negative, it was sideways. That's still a bullish convergence. American Auto Works, and these are all trades that I took either late last year or early this year. Stock trading down to the 50-day moving average, which is blue. a new indicator fired, John's indicator fired, and PMC is clearly having a bullish divergence. Elf Beauty, the cheaper version of what's the beauty of not DSW, yeah, Ulta. Stocks going sideways among all the moving averages. PMC is getting better, and I fire a person buy signal. Motorola Solutions, how many? I mean, the story is endless of these stocks. A little bit about what I do on a workflow, because I think it's important, because I'm totally different than John. John is in his trade room. He's trading. I'm out flying around. I'm making money for my company. And whenever I spend too much trading, my partner reminds me that my most important stock is our stock in the company. And I'm speechless because he's right. Every Monday through Thursday, I try around 10 and around 3:30 to do a quick update. I'm going to do that for you, that update, in about 5 minutes. I look at my current positions. I probably will skip that, but I'll start to look at new candidates, and I'm going to show you how we've combined the power of John's work with, I think, the best scanning program with a few asterisks in the market. Asterisk number one, this is a stock program. It is not a futures, Forex, commodities. It is a stock program. So, options to me are derivatives of stocks. I find my charts on stocks, and then I go into Thinkorswim on the option side. The other caveat is it's probably more of a swing to position trading program than the very active day trader, because I can get intraday updates, but I can't get below a daily chart. Well, I'm a swing trader to position. I make a lot of money in the markets year in and year out. I've been very happy with my performance. This year sucks, but I'm still up over 20%, so I'm not that unhappy despite the big market tumble. And it's without sitting at my screens. Now, every night I've got to do my updates. That's about 45 minutes. I update my data, and then I do a top-down review, which I'm going to show you a little bit of that, abbreviated. And then bottoms up, I look at my favorite scans, which I will share with you momentarily. And then where I really spend time is on the weekend. And this is where I'm certifiably nuts, because I look at probably 800 charts on the weekend. I do a bunch of scans in TradeStation. I do a number of lists I'm downloaded, investors.com, MarketSmith, Stock Scores, FinViz. I've got my favorite smart groups and scans in HGSI, which I'll show you. I use some tools by a great guy named Sagar, Q Tools, which I use. And that builds a list that when the market's good, it's probably 850 stocks. I go and I look at every one of those. I also do a top-down review to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then I come up with my top 10, usually maybe top 30. And then I put them in buy lists, and I'll show you some of that, what I do as well. I enter a lot of conditional trades. I trade a lot on my cell phone. I love the Thinkorswim app on the iOS platform. And I don't look at my charts all day. During the market day, as I said, I've got a full-time job. This COVID thing is amazing because I'm home. It's weird. My wife's ready for me to go back on the road. My dog's happy. If I'm not traveling, you'll see I'll load my things into TradeStation and Thinkorswim, my lists. I set up alerts. I like TC2000. I can draw the line on a chart, and it sends me an alert when it fires. QEdge is a intraday market rotation program I love. I'm traveling most of the time, therefore I'm using the TOS app on my iPhone and getting my alerts. If you're like me and you're not glued to your seat, you got to know money management. I've got strict rules for entry, target, stop loss, and position size. I don't put an order to buy without an order to sell at the same time. And the vast majority of the stocks I buy, I decided the night before, and I got a buy stop into them. So enough of that. Every once in a while, well, every year, John does a number of training programs. I've had the opportunity of speaking at some, and maybe next year it'll be safe to travel again. So on that note, let me show you a little bit about HGSI. The reason why I said to send me an email if you download the program is there's the program. And I suspect George is on here, so I'm going to have to be extra nice. But George knows what I'm going to say. I love the program, but that magic, everything just appeared, and I'm going to make everything go away. I love the program, but there is a learning curve. That's, by the way, I use a program called Fences, and that way I'm able to kill all my stuff so you don't have to watch it and wonder why I have so many programs and why my wife lets me. She doesn't really, I just don't tell her. Here's my email, hgsidoc@gmail.com. I will be more than happy to share with anybody who's new to HGSI some basic learning material. My YouTube is easy. You search Jeffrey Scott and stocks, and you'll get a host of videos that I've done. And every week I go through it's about an hour analysis. All right, so first thing about HGSI is that I mentioned it's not a day traders program, but I said you can get intraday quotes. So I have Thinkorswim loaded and on here, and I was able to go into the intraday button here, enable intraday. Under intraday options, I pick Thinkorswim. Let's click there. And every time I update during the day, as long as I've got that clicked and I've already done it, I update the computer just as I do at end of night. Now, there are variations in how John's work is done across programs. In TradeStation, for example, if you run a scan during the day on a daily chart, a daily bar, it looks at yesterday's bar. If you do in Thinkorswim, you do a scan, it considers today's bar as done. HGSI considers today's bar. So it will print a weekly signal before the end of the week. It'll print a daily signal before the end of the day. That can be really good, or all it takes is a wipeout on Friday and all those weekly signals disappear. Everything is done for you in HGSI. I've used Metastock for years. You name it, I got it. Like I said, not only was I the first person to buy John's lifetime package, I also have it for not only TradeStation, I've got it for Genesis Trade Navigator. In a lot of programs, the database is not maintained for you. In HGSI, the database is maintained. By that, I mean that every industry group or sector is populated appropriately when stocks come out. If we find a mistake, the proprietor is extremely responsive. I can look at various index components and know exactly what components are there. I could also look at ETFs, and not that I necessarily care about some of these, but I can tell I can see what's in there. The data comes from a third party, so there's always a time for it to be updated. But this is done for you. Splits are done for you. Ticker changes are done for you. I like to live in a certain price and volume, so I created my own user group here, which is $2 and $250. I don't really, that's even low for me. I'd rather do 5 and 500, but for some of my scanning, I'm going to go from that group. And I guess here it's actually sitting at 5 and 500. Let me just look at this filter very quickly. Yeah, I'll put it back to 2 and 250, and the 1,873 stocks went to 2497. Now, this is a scanning and charting program that nobody else is, to me, in the world can beat. If I hit warehouse here, I'm going to open up a spreadsheet. Now, I purposefully today set my spreadsheet and my resolution at something that you have a prayer to seeing. So I normally have a lot more desktop space, but then what happens is everybody, I'll use the word complain generously, complains that they can't read anything that's going on in my computer. The heart of HGSI is this little thing here that says view, because a view combines two things. It combines a filter and then a way to rank. I'm not sure I've perfected the ranking yet with John's stuff, and I continue to play with it. But the filter allows me to say, all right, in that list of stocks, show me stocks that closed above a price and volume. I've already done that by only scanning on my group. I could have scanned on all stocks. I want to see a person buy signal that's a buy and occurred within the last day. Could have been yesterday or today. And I don't want to look for ETFs. So I know after a 6-minute total soup to nuts update that there were 176 stocks that met my buy criteria today with a new person buy signal. If I open up and I look at Intel Corporation, here's the new buy signal. And I'm going to come back to the charting module in a second because I want to show you some cool things there. So what I created, and John and I, once this COVID thing allows us to actually have our dogs play and we can sit in the same room together, we're going to expand the scans that come with the program. But the program is really designed to let you customize it. So I've worked with John. We've got stocks in a daily buy. How about stocks in a daily buy whose PMC is improving? Again, I'm looking for that pattern. A daily buy near support. Well, this market's a little bit, I won't say overbought because it was really oversold. Short-term overbought. There's probably not a lot of things sitting on support. How about stocks that have both a weekly buy and a daily buy? And I believe the daily buy is fired within 1 day. There's 117. How about I'm interested in John's trilogy buy, which I won't explain everything that's in it because that's sort of one of his special sauces. But I will tell you that, one, there's a lot of them today, 110. And in my time following John, that's one of the best signals he has. Now let me comment on the person buy signal for a second. I'm just pulling over. I don't need to pull over the trade station and show you. I'll just open up the chart here. I have my own interpretation that may or may not be the same as John's interpretation. I call it a buy signal, but what to me it really is, I'm going to open up a second chart here, is a change in trend signal. And now let me figure out, there's my chart. Let me bring this over. I have to resize everything because, as I mentioned earlier, I mucked with the resolution, so you would have a prayer of seeing what I'm doing. So I'm going to open up John's weekly chart. I find that the person buy signal, the B arrow, often occurs when there's a trend change. Okay, look at, pull back and a new signal, pull back and a signal. You actually had a buy signal fire here, still was a pretty good signal, but you had a sell signal as it pulled back. So if I go off of that assumption that there's a trend change, if I have a stock that has a weekly person buy signal, that should tell me that there's a stock that's been pulling back on a weekly time frame and just had a buy signal or potentially initiating a new uptrend. And if I find a stock that on the daily chart at the same time has had a reversal and a new buy signal, and it's got other characteristics I like, that excites me. So I do spend a lot of time looking at those stocks in this group that are the group I mentioned before that have a daily and weekly PBS buy. The last conditional change requires an additional move or additional change, and it's taking out prior resistance there. I said it, but I'm not going to tell you anything more about it because I want John to still like me. Just kidding. So I look for that often. This represents historically for me really good signals. You'll notice up here in this radar or this view, okay, that I have the ability to display all kinds of columns. There is so much here that I can display, and it's calculated automatically in that 5 or 6 minute update of the program. I'm not even going to go through, but there are hundreds of indicators that I can plot in that view, in that warehouse screen based upon things I'm interested. I'm playing now with supply and demand and looking at, because one of the things that I get in HGSI is percent demand supply. Is that meaningful? And I'm still trying to convince myself one way or the other. I have, how about new daily high cookies? All right. There's a specific, I don't hope you can't hear that, but my dog is snoring next to me. How about an HCD daily and a new person buy signal occurring on the same day? And so on and so forth. And then probably my weekend go-to is this one, which is a high close doji on the weekly chart and a, I don't have to do all this screen switching, on a daily chart. So here's Intel, which today, and this is today's data, there's a regular update I'll do at 7 that gave a buy signal today. And I did it at the end of market, so that buy signal will be here tomorrow. And for those that know John, this may not be a real high close doji because we've already moved up. I would rather have had one further down. So I probably wouldn't count that as a high close doji, although from a specific pattern, it meets many of the criteria. So we can screen for those, and you could also screen for bearish. How many new sells? Well, strong market today, but I've got 74 new person sells came into the market. That might be something I might want to be interested in, especially if they were stocks that I own. And I could do the same review looking at PMC, LCDs, and HCDs. Now, I mentioned before that as individual traders, we have, I think we have an advantage that we create our own brand. And I certainly have created my brand. And remember, I showed you those slides in the beginning. I want, broken record, stocks in an uptrend that pull back to support and then give me a momentum signal. And then if I can get that person market catcher showing me a bullish convergence, that's a stock that I'm going to work up and possibly buy tomorrow. So one of the scans that I sent out to the folks that bought in the program, John's Indicators that have HGSI or bought HGSI, was some of my favorite views. And this is where I live, pullbacks and uptrends. So an uptrend near free parking. Ian Woodward, who I mentioned earlier, taught me and taught us that great stocks have a tendency in an uptrend to pull back to the 50-day moving average and bounce. So that it might be good, rather than chasing runaway trains, it might be good to find great stocks when they pull back and then maybe buy them when they break out with momentum. So I look for stocks in an uptrend. Now, I can define an uptrend in HGSI a number of ways. I have my price and volume in it. I have above the 200-day moving average. They have to be within 2% of, let me find what I want to look at, the 50-day, which is free parking. And then they have to fire one of my momentum indicators. And that's pretty much where I go fishing at to start the night. So if I click on that, it brought up 18 stocks. Okay. So these all have a momentum indicator. And I'm going to show you a stock. The first one, I bet it meets my criteria. I've just done this scan enough times. Is my, I'll say it's gone sideways from where my arrow is. Is my market catcher more positive or less negative today than it was the last time it hit this price? That would be a yes. Is my person buy signal firing today? That would be a yes. I have a stock that I might be interested in buying tomorrow. Now, let me flip it into my chart that's got my moving averages and stuff. And so here's a stock. Yeah, it's been a pretty deep pullback. It's certainly in an uptrend of short. It's like everything else in the market. It got clobbered and now it's bouncing. But I've got my buy signal. I've got correlations with some of my other momentum indicators that I don't need to speak about tonight. This shows me the next quarter. It's due to report 30 cents, which is 100% growth from this quarter a year ago. It looks like it must be an IPO. Here's the group it's part of. It's multiple. It's average volume. Today, the volume was 1.2, same as average. Here's when earnings come out. This tell me the stock was under demand. Now, I could flip through here and look at some of the fundamentals on this stock. I can look at what do they do. And I could come back here. This is the chart I like to look at. Usually when I'm running through a lot of charts, I'll put what they do here. So this is one that I like for a number of reasons. And the other thing I like about it, to be frank, is I don't like to take a lot of risk. And I'm looking at a stock, and I'm going to make it bigger now. Whoops, I made it littler now. And I'm going to drop down here. I'm looking at the time. This is all the information from today. The 50-day moving average is at 25.14. The stock closed at 25.29. If I was going on a plane tomorrow that didn't have internet, or I was in a meeting and I wanted to buy this, I would probably go into my Thinkorswim and put an order that says, I want to buy in mode tomorrow, and my buy stop, and I typically put my buy stop a little bit above the high of the day or the close. The close was at 25.29. The high was at 25.54. Maybe I'll put my buy stop in, and everybody has their own style, at 25.32, maybe 40. Why? Because I want to make sure the market's going up tomorrow. Now, more important to me than my buy stop is, where do I put my sell stop? So here's the chart. Here's the close. Or the low yesterday was 22.95. The low the day before that was 23.11. The low here was 22.11. The low here was 22.16. So I bet there's a good chance that the stock is probably not going to go down much below. And if it went, frankly, below the bottom of this bar at 23.10, I want to be out. So I would probably look at that and say, all right, I'm going to put a buy stop. It says if this stock drops tomorrow below 23.10 or whatever, maybe I'll go a little bit lower, that would be my buy stop. And that's very important to me, because the whole reason why I bought this stock is because it broke out above the 50-day moving average. and I think it's going higher. And if the stock falls below the low yesterday or even the low today, it failed my reason for buying. I want to be out. Now, this day, that's even more, 25 to 23, 8%. I can live with that risk. I'd rather have less risk. But I look at every trade. Where's my buy stop? Where is my initial, and notice the word initial stop going to be? And then what's my plan after that? Now, the next one is Medallia application software. All right, it doesn't have a person buy signal, so I'll probably pass, although we'll see what it does tomorrow. Health Catalyst. It's in a buy signal. This, by the way, this gray line is an industry group. I don't like it as much as INMO because it doesn't have a new buy signal, but I don't not like that. And I can go through this list and see, well, here's another one that's interesting. This is Can-A Holdings. Don't know anything about these stocks. I haven't done any research. What I'm doing is using a program the way it's supposed to be used. You create scans to bring up the types of stocks that you like to buy, and then you look at them to see if they fit your pattern. So I'm looking here, I'm looking at my PMC, I'm looking at where I am from the last person signal. And the reason why this fell out is there was some type of a momentum. Now, I could do this and make a group from the list, and let's just call these, today is what, 4/29, and I hit OK. Now that's going to fill up in here, if I did it right. Good. So these are the stocks that are near free parking. And now I'm going to go down to John's list and see if any of them had a buy signal today. And I see 2 of them met those criteria. Now, if I shift here to the right some, I have buy signal today. There's some nomenclature here that's maybe a little weird. If it had a signal today, then the daily is buy. If it's in an existing buy signal, then this tells you how many days since then. Since I only want today, it tells me 0. So technically, I don't need to have the signal daily here if I have the days equal 0. It tells me whether it was a high close or low close doji. I have the weekly signals. I have how many of the index, the last signal was a buy versus sell. I have the person market catcher, and with a higher resolution, I can see all this on one page. I don't have to do that. So the power of HGSI is that 1 6-minute update was all it took to bring my stocks to where we are today and allow me to start scanning. The other thing I want to show you very quickly, and I know I'm going to run out of time, is top-down investing. Now, I'm just going to go and look at industry groups. So what I've done here, I don't want to do that one. Let me go up here. So, okay, well, I'm not going to play, get the right group. There's 175 industry groups in HGSI. I can rank these industry groups by many ways. I like looking at short-term momentum, and I'm not going to go into a deep discussion. I talk about it on my weekly webinars, and I welcome you and love to have you watch them. This shows me stocks who are industry groups that have momentum. This shows me of the group 1-day performance, 5-day performance. Today there were 7 buys and no sells, and including prior to today, 88% of the stocks are in a buy and 11.8, and 7 of them happened today. That's pretty powerful. I know that this is the offensive line all moved together to the same side. If I right click on airline index, I can change it to index group. Now index group has brought up the groups in this, the stocks in this industry group that met my criteria for positive momentum. Let's see if there's any that had negative momentum. No surprise, none of them did. And now what I can do is I can I can double click on this, and that's going to drop Delta Airlines down into my list here, into my chart. And you could see all the airlines came down, and I want it to be in the order that they're. So let me double click it again. Okay, that's the order that they ranked. And now I can very quickly, well, Delta Airlines, certainly going sideways. PMC is kind of, sort of, maybe going better, and it fired a new person buy signal today. Right click, quick add to group. I'm going to toss it into, because I'm going to go back later and play with it. I bought American today. Maybe I want to buy some more. Today is Wednesday. Just going to toss it in there, and I'll come back and look at it later. United Continental Holdings, same exact pattern. American, same exact pattern. So now I can start looking which one actually has the best on the person market catcher, and maybe it's Delta. So I can go through. Now I'm going to go back up here to my industry groups, right click, hit back. Now I can go to semiconductor devices, change to index group. 4 new buys today, 2 sells. 96% of the stocks in this group are in a buy signal. All right, let's take a quick look. Micron, let's make sure the order is the right order. It is. And let's take a look at the top stocks. Is it new buy, mobile breakout from a squeeze? Had a person buy signal yesterday. Whoops, come back. And notice it's showing up on the weekly chart on the right as well. Intel Corporation, NXP, and here I can very rapidly go through and see, do any of these meet the criteria that I want to use to buy a stock. And I go down through that list. I usually only look at the top 10. If I want to buy stuff, why don't I want to buy it with the best stuff? And they all got this same, I've been beaten to death and now I'm showing some life pattern. I mean, I'm not vouching for it. I haven't done my research. Occidental Petroleum, beaten up. I think they're in a transaction world too, buying somebody. Going sideways here. The PMC, yeah, it's up a little bit from here, has gone positive, and I had a new buy signal. I'm about to break above the 50. So I run scans for one reason. I run scans so that I can get clues as to where the money's going and where the stocks are that I want to buy. I think that the incorporation of John stuff in HGSI beats where it's at in any other program. The speed, the flexibility, the top-down and bottoms-up approach built in is great. And let me just say one more time. When I do that 6-minute update, all my scans are done. I don't have to wait. And I can update my scans during the day. Your data will be delayed 6 minutes.
Thank you, Jeff. I know, Andy, thank you for your comment. And yes, Randy, LCCs are a part of what we put there. The only thing we've got a few things that I just would point out. The last conditional change. And in what we had put together was the PMC relative strength, person's pivot, which we didn't even talk about. The last conditional change, which is a support and resistance of biblical epic proportions. This is no doubt one of what actually is a component of what the trilogy. Now, Jeff was talking about the trilogy. What is the trilogy? Trilogy is a couple things that have to do with the person's pivot and in relationship to PPS or PBS momentum and the last conditional change. So 3 things, the trilogy. And so we also have the high and low close dojis trigger scans. And then again, using the combination of what HGSI has been able to put together with their fundamental package. And so with that said, those traders who are HGSI users that have maybe schooling from other methodologies, I'm not telling you anyone did I ever say to abandon anything that you've learned before. I just found that a lot of the indicators that I've put together simplify things, number one, and put it in a logical approach. It makes sense. If you're a stock trader, is your stock outperforming, weakening, or is it improving relative to the market? You know that money chases money, and that's the bottom line, guys. I mean, institution guys are not going to be bottom picking garbage. They're going to go with momentum trades, and that's where money chases money. And the momentum trades is where you'll find the pickup of value relative with that PMC indicator. Breakout trades, did it clear resistance? The last conditional change is a vital tool in helping us detect hidden support and resistance beyond the person's pivot approach as well. And lastly, gang, one of the nice features is when you look at a stock and you want to look at the fundamentals, but the fact that this is staring you right in the face. I'm thinking of buying this dip. Oh, should I? Well, let's take a look. The PMC indicator is red and trending down. The stock's trending down. It's not in a doji. It's not in a high close doji. It's not in a buy. Nothing's in a buy. The percent of stocks in that sector are only 30% of them in a buy. It's lagging the relative strength. No, maybe I'll wait. And that's part of the neat thing. So no matter how good you like a name or like a company, if you've got it staring you right in the face, which you have, and another reason why this is such an awesome combination and why I really, truly love this is that I can sit there and say, I just don't want to buy the lonely stock, the lone wolf in the pack. Yeah, every once in a while, Tesla is not really a stock that's in the automotive group, but here it is popping up, right? But the point being is that individual stocks are sometimes unique, but stocks that you're looking for an opportunity, that hidden gem, and that's what we can find, hidden gems. I mean, let's face it, raise your hand. Is a 20% move in 3 days on Penske Auto Group not a hidden gem? I mean, that's amazing. We had another one, by the way, that we found, and I didn't even talk about it. Some of you guys are in the trading room. You know this, HB Fuller. Now, we exited that trade today. We got in the trade at 32.40 Thursday in the live trading room based on our scans and popped out on an average of around 37, I think it was 37.60, 65, I think. 37.60 today, we exited that trade. That's another 20% trade since Thursday. Now, this doesn't happen every single week or every single day. We were just in a dynamic situation, but we had the sense not to buy puts. We had the sense not to sell short. We had the sense to look for buying opportunities, and that's what this helped us pick out. So this is exciting times, and I guarantee you this year, 2020, I mean, not only has it been an exciting year, I mean, we need a break, man, but it's going to continue to be a firefight for the rest of the year. Remember, COVID-19, we still have to get through this issue. We've got the summer markets. We've got then coming into the fall, what then is going to happen? And more importantly, the biggest fireworks display of all times, a presidential election. Boy, if you don't think this is going to be a dynamic year, think again. And I think everyone deserves to have this program in their hands. With that said, Jeffrey, thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for spending time with us. And you guys, you're going to enjoy this. You're going to love this. Thanks again for staying with us this long. Have a great rest of your trading week. And for those members that are in our live trading room, I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll try to wrap it all over again. All right. Hey, guys, who was Emmanuel Dixon? No, sir. This is not a day trade program. For that, you would probably definitely want to keep with TradeStation. Again, I think we addressed that in the beginning. This was a stock program only for those that like stock trading. And then again, if you want to convert your stock signals and trade options, Thinkorswim is, and that's the neat thing about this program. They get data through, I believe, part of what at least for me, I use the Thinkorswim. I have an account, obviously, with Thinkorswim. And with that said, you can use that to help maybe trade those stock signals and apply option strategies with it. So that's where we get that. All right. So thank you once again. And Emmanuel, again, if you're into trading futures, it would be our TradeStation program that you would want to take a look at. All right. Thank you for your question. I appreciate you taking the time to type that in. Bob, thank you. Hussein, thank you. And Dimitru, thank you. If I didn't butcher your name, I hope I didn't. Dimitru. And Janet, thank you. Nice. All right, that does conclude our time together. Hopefully the recording worked. Everything should be good. We'll see if we'll have this posted on the website for those that didn't